How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. Firstly, welcome back. Happy New Year. I took a little bit of time off over the festive period. I'd put in the time and the effort, and I was a little bit tired by the time that we'd had a few weeks into the Dragonflight launch, especially with all the beta and the alpha footage and content that we did prior to. So I took a couple of days off. A couple of days turned into a couple more days. A couple of days turned into a week turned into two. You know how it goes. But we're back now. It's 2023 and it's time to get cracking again, and more importantly, play some video games and make some gold in World of Warcraft. Today I wanted to talk about a little topic that came up on stream. We are streaming again now. If you hadn't jumped over and said hi on twitch.tv/Manthieus, we are streaming once again, Monday through till Friday. Come say hi. But a topic that came up on stream was that the crafting system is super difficult. Many people are complaining or finding it very, very difficult to squeeze a profit out of crafting. And I wanted to just chip in with, my 2 cents on this situation, as it was A, kind of expected. It was B, definitely going to happen, but there is some simplistic ways to alleviate this problem. Crafting is super competitive right now. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The crafting, there is way too many people crafting, to put it simply. Crafting is one of those scenarios where you are more often than not buying materials, trying to convert them in some way, shape or form to add value to them, to then sell them to somebody that also sees that added value in them. When you break it down to its basics anyway. This does tend to mean that you're dealing with margins. You're dealing with, you have a cost, you have to buy your materials, and then you're trying to sell something. And that bit in the middle is the bit that you get to keep. And hopefully you want that bit in the middle to be as big of a chunk as possible. At the beginning of an expansion, it's like Christmas every day, right? The margins are usually pretty steep. You can make an awful lot of profit just buying materials and selling things. And this is usually on the premise that everything is new. Absolutely everything is new. There's so many new items, new materials, new components, intermediate products, conversions to be had. There's so many opportunities that people just haven't had time to work out the values of everything yet. It's what we often refer to as a very volatile market. Prices can go up and down super quickly. And if you time things right, if you buy things when they're super cheap or before people really see their true value in them, and then sell them off or convert them and then sell them off at a later date, you can make out like a bandit. We're now, though, about a month into Dragonflight. And this has kind of meant that people kind of have the system down now. People have had enough time in the game and enough experience in the game to work out what's going on, what's the supply like on the materials that they need, what's the demand like on the items that they're trying to craft and sell. And when you throw the region-wide auction house at this as well, it means that margins are getting very, very skinny very, very quickly. So much so that many people are actually looking at their profession right now and going, what do I do? Never mind spec trees and spending points in the right places. There just doesn't seem to be anything that's remotely profitable right now. Is there a big reason for this, and is there a solution to it? I think so. From my experience, at least with this new crafting system, I was lucky. I got to spend a lot of time with it on the beta and the alpha. It's a layered system, and it's a system which, because of the quality aspect of it, there's big sweeping changes that happen at certain points, and you can't easily tell when those points are going to be. When somebody, for example, gets the ability to stop crafting things at quality 2 and sometimes quality 3 through things like inspiration procs, but they gain enough skill or enough expertise, or they get the right build in place to be able to then guarantee quality 3, that usually also means that they're doing it at a very similar price. And this means that they can push the price of everything down, and when they push the price of everything down, it pushes you out. That's the worst situation. This has meant that the bar is set pretty high in Dragonflight now. People have worked out the way that the system is working, and it's really only that top percentage of crafters that are actually still continuously making gold. My advice very early on in Dragonflight was to pick a profession, and do everything you possibly can with that profession. This includes farming as many knowledge points as you can, getting your profession tools in place, stacking any buffs and bonuses. For example, the favorite one of mine at the moment is this little incense that it gives you a 2% inspiration buff. Sounds like nothing really, does it? But that little 2% inspiration buff can in some cases be the difference between you making a profit on what it is you're doing and taking a loss on whatever it is you're doing. The margins can be that tight at the moment. This has meant that there's just frankly too many people crafting, and we need to just either take a little bit of a step back and wait for the dust to settle a little bit more, because people don't give away stuff for free forever. People will get bored of these super skinny margins and they'll move on and they'll do something else. And that's when the markets can start to sort of come back to life a little bit. And your niche, which you've spent the time gaining the knowledge points, you've researched, you've spec'd into, you've unlocked the patterns and the recipes that you need, you'll be able to go back to that and still, and be able to keep your head above water. I don't know if I'm explaining this all too well, but it's difficult to, in a single sort of in a single go, to explain how the economy in a game like this works, especially when they've made such aggressive changes to it recently. But there is some light at the tunnel if you're one of those people that feels a little bit stuck right now. There's two options you've got here, really. The two options are quite simple. Either knuckle down and try and just do everything you possibly can to claw back at that advantage. But let me tell you, that's much easier said than done. The alternative option is there's actually, right next door to us, just basically an uneaten chocolate cake, right? There's a massive chocolate cake that's just waiting for people to dive into and is really, really tasty right now. And it's something that I don't think so many people have really considered. It's farming. It's horrible for me to say it as somebody that sort of advocates against doing farming a lot of the time, because you're trading your time for gold and you should consider that relatively valuable. But the truth be told right now is that farming can still make you a pretty penny. The reason I've had the auction house up on this screen during this video is just to show you some of the materials are still really, really valuable. These are prices that we would have killed for only a couple of months ago at the end of Shadowlands. Wraith bark. There's not a single piece of wraith bark that's under 100 gold a piece. Saxifrage is still relatively valuable. You have your Hockenbloom is obviously going to be very cheap, but spoiler alert, just fly past it. It's fine. Bubble Poppy. I'm focusing on the herbs here because herbs go into potions, and potions, big business in potions. But the other materials are the same. Depending on how you go out and do some farming, I would suspect right now that you could still make a pretty decent amount of gold per hour. I'm not the kind of person that likes to put big flashy gold per hour titles on his YouTube videos, because I understand that times change and people have different setups. But the reality is right now, if you're not able to sell 400,000-500,000 gold in a single hour worth of stuff on the auction house through crafting, you would probably be better off farming right now. There's a video that I really enjoyed making back in Shadowlands, which I might leave a link to in the description down below. I'm very tempted to redo the video for the new Dragonflight crowd. But it was about when is it sensible to farm and when is it sensible to craft. The reality is you have to be crafting at a really big scale to actually make it worthwhile, because you're dealing with margins. You have costs and you have, what you sell things for. And it's that chunk in the middle that is all you get to take out of it. When you're farming, though, yes, you have to trade in your time, but you get the entire sale value. And it usually means that people can make their gold total go up higher much quicker initially with farming. And once you've got that big stack of cash, then you can throw it at buying a bunch of materials and do crafting at scale and do it aggressively and buy in quantity at the cheap periods in the week, and then craft and then sell your wares aggressively on the busy periods. That's the way to do crafting long term. But you've got to kind of you've got to keep it ticking over. You've got to keep that gold value going. And at the moment, if you really are struggling with crafting, I would recommend doing some farming. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not the most interesting, but if you are trying to keep that gold total going and you want to put your crafting professions just on the back burner temporarily, don't forget them. Don't drop them. Use an alt to do some farming. I'm certainly not one for advocating dropping the professions, but maybe leaving your crafting characters to chill just for a little bit. Make sure you do your weekly quests to keep their knowledge points up. Make sure you're keeping their progress ticking over. But if you really are struggling to find that profitable market right now, farming is a great alternative. And if you do two at the same time, if you keep them running in tandem, not too difficult. You can put herbalism and mining on a single character, and it doesn't need to be any specific character, just one that's level 60. The new evokers, if you haven't made an evoker yet, is a prime candidate for gathering, as they've got super mobility. They're really, really good and can recharge vigor super fast and the likes. But there is an alternative option, and it's one I would highly recommend at the moment. In the next few days and weeks, we'll probably dive into this a little bit more in detail. There's a lot of content out there on YouTube about sort of farming, but most of it is quite high-level farming, if that's a term to use. It often requires you to get into 2x4 groups, often requires you to have super optimized builds and setups. And I think that's quite daunting to many people. The reality is it's just a simple setup of herbalism and mining, a reasonable route to follow, an episode of something you enjoy to watch on Netflix, before you realise you could have made 50, 60, 70, 100,000 gold, and you feel much better because of it. So we'll dive into that in a little bit more detail in the upcoming days and weeks. But I will leave it there for now, boys and girls. This is my first video back. I apologise if it's a little bit rusty. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there for how I feel the market seems to be working right now. It's deja vu. It's real deja vu. The exact same thing happened about a month into Shadowlands. Legendaries, for example, lots of people were like, no, legendaries not profitable, not doing it, not investing in it. And they left the market completely. But those that stuck with it, those that persisted through it, those that kept the gold accruing by doing other things while still still keeping that progress that they made with their legendaries, as a side activity, those people were able to jump back into the legendary market the very second that it became profitable again, and ended the expansion with hundreds of millions of gold. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you're struggling right now, don't worry, it will get much, much better. Entertain yourself, occupy yourself, keep that gold flowing in via other methods, of which we'll touch on in a little bit more detail in the upcoming videos. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. Thank you all for watching. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Consider subscribing if you're new around here, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.